so Julian, look a little bit more this way. Right, perfect.
He's looking in the right direction.
All right, anytime, Kyle.
Okay, my name's Kyle Liston, and we're here today interviewing Julian Riley. We're at the Rocky Mountain Regional VA, and this is part of the Remembering Our Veterans program. And we're very glad to have Julian here with us today. Anything that you want to add to the introduction?
Oh, thank you for the introduction.
Thank you. So we're going to start by asking a few questions about where you were born and where you grew up. If you can tell me a little bit about that history.
Okay, so I was born on July 9th, 1988. I was born in Chillicothe, Alabama. Born and raised in Alexander City, Alabama, a population of about 3,000 people. My childhood consisted of being ignored and being the oddball of the family and the person to go run errands. As a kid, we didn't grow up with a father in the beginning, so I was the man of the house, and it was my responsibilities. If my mother needed to go run errands, she would send me to go run errands. And as a child, it didn't really make sense to me at first. And I mean, as a child, you'll do whatever you want to do for your parent. So if she needed me to go get something from the store, I went to go get it for her. And pretty much my childhood was consistently given, and I was a great kid. I didn't really get in too much trouble. It was a pretty, I would say, easy, kind of easy and kind of complicated at the same time.
What was your best memory of your childhood?
My best memory of my childhood would have to be probably my sister. Even though I don't remember that memory, when she was born, pushing her out of the bed. Although I don't have any memory of it, it's one story that everybody remembers. And for me, it was a story that made me feel, I don't know, I cared about her enough to touch her, at that age. And I guess another memorable moment would be graduating high school. That's probably like the best moment for me in that time period.
Can you tell me what you mean by feeling like an oddball growing up?
So growing up, I was, at that time period, I thought I was full homosexual, although I did not figure that out later. My family did not agree with that. My father, I guess, at first. My mother, it took her a little bit to get used to it, and she did, and we had a relationship. We continued to that relationship, and eventually she got used to it, but it took me moving out pretty much for her to get all the way used to it.
Right.
But that was probably the most hard part, I guess, of my childhood.
How were you treated in school?
In school, so you have to put a lot of factors in. I was born in Alabama, area of isms, discrimination. If we could add an ism, that would be in there. Racism, just the, in the South, they misunderstand things that they don't understand. They have a problem with.
Yes.
So it was hard. The verbal was probably the worst as a kid in high school, and I adapted.
So you were verbally abused.
Just verbal. It was all verbal.
Yes.
There was nothing further than that. Just verbal, and I can be humble for that. Especially living in Alabama, a place where, you know, a lot of closed-minded people. Not everybody's that way, but majority of people are that way. And, you know, in a small town in Alabama where I'm from, you know, it's all about what you're doing. It's not about what they're doing. So, you know, it's common for people to get caught up in the next door neighbor's, you know, issues and forget their own. And then they have a pile of problems. But that's the South.
Right.
And in summary, pretty much.
Right. How did school go for you when you were growing up?
So with the way that I felt like kind of left out in my family because I was the smart kid. I graduated with a 3.2. Not that that's high, you know, in
That's good.
comparison to, you know, other people in my class, you know, even. I was proud that it came to a point where I had to be proud of myself.
Right.
And I was proud of myself, and that GPA I knew would get me somewhere. And, you know, I didn't need any recognition. And shortly after I turned 18, I was out of there. I went to Florida. I started school there, International Academy of Design and Technology. Now it's a different school. Got a fashion design and marketing degree, associates there. And I was there for about 2 years.
Now, at what point in your childhood did your stepfather enter the picture?
So my stepfather, he entered the picture about 2013, if I can remember correctly. So they've been married since then. They're still married today. I can say that I'm proud of my mother for that, you know. We didn't get a lot of direction, but a lot of things in my family was nonverbal. You know, seeing, you know, my mother stayed with somebody that long, it gave me a lot of confidence that maybe one day I could have something similar, you know.
Right.
And although I didn't get to ask her what the secret was, that was one consistent thing in my life was she always had she was always married for the most part since 2013. And that was probably the only consistent thing in my life was that, you know, we all could depend on him, because before it was me. I was the person, you know, walking down the street to go get things at 11, and I think I was about 10 or 11, and I was relieved, you know, when he came into the picture, not only because, you know, I needed somebody to teach me how to get my permit and drive, which thank God, you know, he did that for me. You know, like a lot of people in life, they take away from people sometimes when negative things are in the mix. I was grateful, you know, that, you know, they didn't make time for me all the time, but he made time to get my permit and get a license. And from then on, I worked pretty much I worked at Sonics. I think I got a permit at like 14 years old. Thank God my mother signed that, you know. And so I walked, you know, I couldn't really rely on them to take me, you know, pick me up and come get me. Sometimes they did, but for the most part, I had to really rely on my own. And I walked. It wasn't that far, but the fact that I still had to walk was emotionally scarring for me because, you know, I didn't feel like anybody cared about me, even at that age. So, you know, I was like, well, I got to go, you know, make my own income, because if I don't, then who's going to pay for everything that I want?
ED bed 4, stroke alert. ED bed 4, stroke alert. ED bed 4.
So, what age were you when your stepfather stepped in?
It was about, I want to say 15 and 16, because by that time I was already in high school. It was maybe in 9th or 10th grade.
Okay.
Approximately. It was almost to the point where I was out of the house. So I think it was about the time I was getting a license. 15 and 6, 14 or 15, something like that.
Okay. And then you left when you were 18 to go to Florida.
Yep.
And how was that experience?
Liberating.
That's great.
You know, I went from, you know, not being able to do things. You know, I didn't get to spend the night at people's houses. I can count on my hands the times that I spent the night at people's houses. And I was really sheltered. We didn't really as a family, we didn't do things, you know. We didn't, I probably have a few pictures in my memories and physical pictures of the zoo. And that's the only proof that I went anywhere at that time period as a child. And it really directly affected me now because it's hard to go out and do things. And it's hard to make myself go out and do things. And I kind of feel uncomfortable when I have to do it by myself because it's new, you know, and it's a whole process in itself, you know, going to go do things. And, you know, my military service itself was great because I had people to do things with all the time. You know, if you're in a team, you're never by yourself. You know, you always have people you're accountable for in your unit. I mean, at that point and at the point when I went to school, I was a social butterfly. Like I went from, you know, dealing with animosity in Alabama from all the isms there. And, you know, this is the first time I get to go out and have my own social life and, you know, figure out who I was on my own. And, you know, I didn't get to do anything. So I partied my ass off. I did. I partied and
Good
I
for
enjoyed it.
you.
And I don't regret it, you know. And
Right.
some of it was wasted time, yes. At the same time, it was needed at that time period for me to be happy.
Right.
You know?
It sounds like you missed a lot of normal childhood activities.
I did. Yeah, definitely so.
Were your parents involved in a church at all?
So my family we were definitely churchgoers. We didn't miss a Sunday church until I got to the point when I was 17, and then I just told my mother, no, I'm not going to church. I'm done. This is not for me. This is for you. And one stubborn day, I was like, hey, I'm not going. And I'm surprised that it actually worked. And from then on, I really didn't go. And that was really the only thing that we did as a family. We went to go visit family members. We didn't do a lot of other things aside from that.
Did you celebrate holidays?
We celebrated holidays with family. Although that dynamic changed when my grandmother passed. You know, in our society, grandparents are the pillar of the entire family. You know, they're like the cement block in the wall at the bottom. You know, if you take that cement block at the bottom, watch the whole thing crumble to the ground. And that was my grandmother, and she was nonverbal leader. And you know what she said went. You know, there was no changing things. There was no we're gonna do this. When my grandmother said we were gonna do this, she expected that to go the way that she wanted to. And you know, everybody respected her. You know that, hey, well, mama or granny, she wants to go do this, and we respected what she wanted to do. And my grandma was easiest and best person in my entire life, my best role model.
So you loved her very much.
To this day.
Is she still with us? Or?
No, she passed in 2010.
I'm sorry. That's hard.
It feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not gonna stop going, trying.
Right.
I'm not.
Right. Yeah.
And every time that I feel like I'm gonna quit, I remember the crazy part was before she left, she asked me, my grandmother never asked for anything. She asked me, she said, hey, can I get $20? I'm thinking I'm 18. I think I was 18, 19, something like that. And I was like, okay, well, my granny, she never asked for anything, and I'm just going to blow this smoking weed anyways, because at that time, that's what I did. I said, let me give this $20 to my grandma, and if she gives it back, so what? She never asked for anything. So I gave it to her, and that was the last time that I had an interaction with her, and I'm glad it went that way. And she was like, she said, remember, I don't care if you smoke weed, but please stop smoking cigarettes.
Okay.
E-cigarette is as close as I get to one. And when I think that I'm weak, I remember, boom, hey,
Mhm.
this is what, I don't care if you do this, just try to quit smoking cigarettes. She knew. And I don't even know how she knew, but grandmothers know everything.
Yeah.
I miss her to this day, and even still, she does inspire me when I feel weak. I remember everything that she taught me, and she was traveling around the country with cancer.
Wow.
With cancer,
So
after
she
she had
was,
already been diagnosed with cancer already. So she was still trucking, and I have to remember that if something bad happens, keep going.
mhm.
And that was the beginning of my inspiration for me to be strong and continue to do what I need to do.
She sounds like she was a very strong woman. And it sounds like you're very proud of her.
I am, and I think giving up will be to this day letting her down. Almost like she's still watching, and I know she still is watching. So.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have a pretty high spiritual belief that you hold on to as well.
I do.
Yeah. Would you like to talk about that a little more?
It's spiritual. So my spirituality, I'm a big believer in karma, even though it's not a spiritual religion.
Right.
I believe that the same energy you give people is the same energy you'll get back eventually, and I just try to treat people the way I want to be treated. And mind you, try. I'm not perfect. And on my bad days, if I can't apologize, I have to forgive myself.
Right.
But for the most part, I try to treat people the way that I want to be treated, and I kind of live by that. And I guess if you want to say spiritual, that's like my utmost spiritual belief. You give, you get, and whatever energy you put out there is the same energy you'll get back. And, you have to be careful of negative energy because, as humans, we hold our temper on our sleeve. And sometimes I'm guilty of that myself. And I have to realize, hey, this is a person that, hasn't went through everything that I've been through, as far as what they can and cannot tolerate. So I have to remind myself, hey, be patient with this person. This person is still growing. This person is still learning themselves. They don't know themselves enough to know that, karma is like the back of your hand. You flip it over and it's right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever experienced instant karma?
Instant karma.
When you've seen somebody do something?
Maybe with my sister, maybe.
Really?
It's always a dynamic in that relationship. Fighting over food because she would do this crazy thing where she would save food in the refrigerator, knowing that she wouldn't eat it, knowing that I had my eyes on it because then I was kind of a chubby kid. And we, sometimes I ate it out of spite, but karma come back, do the same thing, or something end up happening to my food because I ate hers. I would say that would be maybe an example of instant karma for me to evaluate.
That's interesting. Well, tell me a little bit about when you first entered the service and what was the motivating factor for you to enter the service?
So I was in Florida at 18. I'd already been there. I graduated. I got 2009 was when I was living with my roommates, and we decided to move when the lease was over, and it ended up nobody being prepared for the next location to move. And everybody was from Florida. They lived in Florida. So essentially when the lease was up, everybody was gone and they were going back to their homes, and they had family in Florida. Guess where my family was? Alabama. I did have family in Florida, but I didn't know where they were. So I ended up moving back home, and that was the beginning of the transition into the Army because I just left that place, the same place where I had already went through 18 years of everything that at that age I could possibly go through, minus physical, like what else could have happened? who knows if I would have stayed there, what would have happened. And I'm lucky that when I went home, I had enough willpower to say, hey, this is not where you want to be. You want to be somewhere else.
Right.
Why are you frustrated? I'm frustrated because I'm having to rely on people that don't want to support me anymore. And so, hey, I have to support myself. So at that moment, I was actually living with a family member, visiting in New York. And at that moment, we had a lot of discrepancies that it would be even too awkward to even explain, but it was inappropriate. And so at that moment, I was like, hey, family, they're not reliable. I need to do something. I need to support myself. I need to stand on my own feet and do something for myself. And at that moment, I was considered so many things. My cousin kind of inspired me, the same one that I lived with, as a matter of fact. He was in the service, and I was like, well, wow, maybe I'll go into the service. And that was one thing on my list that I said I'd never do. Never. Not because of the disrespect. It was just one of those things. I just, at that point in my life, I just looked at it like, no, I never do that. And I ended up moving back home. I moved back in with my mother temporarily. That could not be a permanent fixture, me living with her, because, oh my God, she was not the same mother as other mothers. She was angry all the time. And I mean, that was the South people. The people in the South are always angry about something. And I just could never find happiness living with her. And I just never felt appreciated living with her either. And at the same time, I was like, I gotta go. I already know what I'm getting myself into. I'm not re-signing up for this. And so I immediately looked at the Navy, and I was like, well, hey, maybe I'll try the Navy. And I'd already took the ASVAB, I think. And the score wasn't high enough for the Navy. The Navy was higher. At that point, I had burned out my brain cells from probably smoking pot. And I probably wasn't the sharpest on everything as I should have been at that point. I didn't want to retake the test, so I ended up seeking other branches. So I looked into the Marines, and I did a little research. I heard things about it, and I was like, maybe not this one. Let's try the Army, even though it wasn't on the plan. This will get me out of here. And so the minute I went into there, I did everything, got processed. I was on the delayed entry program about 2010. That fall, I was in the delayed entry program. Mind you, that program is nothing. It's just holding you hostage until you have to go.
Right.
And literally, you still have to almost be on your best behavior as far as not doing anything, not getting in trouble, not, doing any drugs, which, I got to the point where it's like, drugs are not worth it. Let's get out of here. Let's stop everything. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different. So I completely revamped everything. I stopped doing a lot of things because, leaving was so important, much more important than temporary, alleviation from whatever, pot, alcohol, whatever. I was like, nope, I'm going to stay, on the straight and narrow and wait for this contract to start. And February 4th, 2011 was the beginning of my Army service.
Okay. And what made you decide on the Army over the other branches?
I didn't want to take the ASVAB over.
Okay.
That would have been 6 extra months that I would have to stay at home.
Okay.
Who knows what would have happened if I had to wait 6 months? And I didn't want to do that to myself. And it was just time to go. And I was like, nope, let's go. Let's get in. That saying, get in where you can fit in. I did. I got in where I could fit in, and I was just literally waiting, and then that's when I started in 2011.
So they were the most available.
They were the most available. Now, I didn't get any bonuses, but happiness, you don't need a bonus for happiness. Right. And, that was a new transition for my life to, go from being, waiting on my family to do things for me that, I was only waiting for disappointment. So I had to, decide, hey, let's go do things. I don't know what's next. I don't care what's next. It's not here. So I decided to leave.
So what were your actual dates of service?
So it went from technically from the February 4th I think 4th or 5th, 2011 to 2015, about the same time. Coincidentally, it happened that way. That was pretty much my entire service time.
Uh-huh. And can you tell me where you're stationed?
So get ready for this now.
I will.
I was stationed in, first my basic was in Fort Knox
Okay.
before they closed it.
Mhm.
You know, it's not open anymore. It's not an active duty station.
Okay.
I was the last group to, maybe not the last group, but maybe like the last of the 5 groups to graduate there before they completely closed it.
Mhm.
And so I did my AIT and my basic training there. So basic training, I think it's normally 6 weeks unless they changed it. And
Uh-huh.
adding on to that was like 2 months. So I didn't leave Kentucky until June of that same year.
Uh-huh.
And I was completely done at that point.
Okay.
And then I went from there. I picked Italy and Georgia. I don't know why I picked those 2, especially Georgia, since it's so close to home.
It is.
But literally, I ended up getting an oddball duty station, Schofield Barracks, and I was excited. Wasn't what I picked, but who's gonna complain about Schofield Barracks, Hawaii?
Hawaii.
Yeah, who would? Nobody would complain about that.
How was Hawaii for you?
A culture shock, kinda, because nobody knows that those territories. Well, I don't know if people know, a lot of those territories still live the same way we used to live. How we have, mother, father, grandma, uncle, yada yada yada, all in one house.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of the same concept that they had in Hawaii, and like even to this day, it's still tradition for the most part. And
Mhm.
seeing that family, seeing how committed family could be there.
Mhm.
Oh my God, it was like, I was like, wow, this is impressive. Like they really, they really care about each other. They really, are involved in each other's life. And that was impressive. And then the culture shock from living in Florida that little bit of time and seeing beaches, and then, going to a completely different side of the world and seeing beaches was another one. And it was, I'm speechless on how beautiful the scenery was, the duty stations, the people, for the most part, were nice. You have those stereotypes of islanders, how they treat people. If you are disrespectful, expect the unknown. But when you're respectful and humble and appreciative, expect hospitality, because that's what I got when I lived there. I didn't meet any negative people as far as like anybody started anything with me, even as a soldier.
Right.
Never got any of that. And it was a mutual, amicable relationship. Hey, I'm gonna respect you. You're gonna respect me. It wasn't like something that we had to beg for. It was just something that was just given. And that culture shock from here to there, it was because I was moving from Alabama, from
Right. Yeah.
negativity and the third, and then I move over to Ohana, family. Family is not necessarily who you are blood related to, it's who you can rely on and who you can, hey, I'm here, can you come pick me up? Yeah, give me a second. That, and I met some people out there that extended that. I came over, I was part of the family and I wasn't part of the family. And, it was beautiful. And meeting people there, I met people when I first moved there at the UPS, and I was so amazed about how quick them taking me in was. And I was never alone on holidays. I was always at their house. They were always cooking and they always invited me. And I never felt like, oh my God, I'm here by myself, And although my family lived in the mainland and I was there by myself, it was refreshing to have people that I could be like, hey, what are you doing? Can I come over and eat at your house? Because I don't have anywhere to go, And that was, I missed that part about, like, if I could move back, I'd move back just for that.
Right. So you really went out and explored their culture.
I did. On the days that we got time to get off, to go explore, I was like Diego. I was out there looking and hunting, and I tried to go to every beach. Although I couldn't touch everyone, I surprised myself with how much I actually wanted to go and how much things I actually did living there.
Yeah. So what type of MOS did you have when you were in the Army?
So my MOS was Cavalry Scout, which is a 19 Delta, which is kind of similar to Bravos. I don't know the history of the two jobs, but I know that at one point they were one, and I think maybe they were split. So the cavalry, technically, we go out and we're like, we're like the SWAT team before the second group of people come out. We're like seeing what's going on. Okay, we're reporting back to the commander, hey, everything is safe. We didn't see any enemies. We didn't, everything is clear. It's a clear pathway. We don't see any obstacles, before y'all get here. That's technically what my job technically was. But I didn't get to do that job a lot, especially in deployment status. We would train. That's how we really did. Train, shot weapons, we qualified. And my secondary job was human resource specialist, which personnel actions, finance actions, schools, you name it. If I didn't do it, my sergeant did. So that was pretty much my job, and I got a sense of relief. I felt important, because I was helping people do things, and I was not supposed to be in that position, and technically, so every unit has a support. So in every unit is the headquarters. So we support them. We support them through, if they need weapons, we bring them weapons out. We bring the qualifying papers out. I was in charge of keeping those papers and making sure that they didn't get lost. If you got on my bad side, maybe they did get lost. Depending on, it just, and to have that position as an E3 and as an E5, like,
wow,
it made me more responsible. It made me feel important. And despite my rank, I didn't really look at my rank. I looked at, okay, what did I do today?
Were you an E3 then?
I was an E3 then. Yep.
Wow. What was the highest rank that you attained?
Subject specialist.
Okay. So an E4.
E4.
Yeah. And aside from getting to know the Hawaiians and having that aloha spirit transferred into your heart and mind, what was maybe one of the most humorous things that happened with you during your military service?
Got one. So in basic training, we pretty much at the disposal of the drill sergeant. So whatever they say goes. If one of them has a different schedule, we go by that different one schedule. So one Sunday, I think, my bunkmate or battle buddy, you always get one, you're almost like chained to that person. And, whatever you do, you're responsible. Whatever they do, you're responsible. It's like a reciprocating punishment or acknowledgement, good or bad, so we were all sitting in the room and relaxing and not sleep, because we were told to do anything but sleep. And the drill sergeant walks in randomly. This one drill sergeant, he was on some kind of medication. We don't know. All we know is that he came into work, he was kicking the door. So we can go by his mood on how he carried himself that day. If he kicked the door, then we could, do whatever. If he didn't kick the door, we had to be like on eggshells, like, okay, what is he going to make us do? What are we going to be able to do? Can we do this or do that? It was at the disposal of the drill sergeant. So one walks in, I forget exactly who it was. My battle buddy was asleep inside of his locker. And it's one of those lockers that are big enough for a person to get in, I don't know if y'all seen those kind of lockers. He was in there. And I told him, I'm like, it gets to a point where you can only tell somebody and advise somebody, and you can't control what they do. And I didn't predict that he would be sleeping in his locker. I didn't predict he would get caught, and he did. And the minute the drill sergeant walked in, same time, and he walked out the locker. Like, that was perfect, the interaction. And next thing you know, I'm downstairs, and we're both downstairs, and the drill sergeant is making us both do,
push-ups?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he caught him sleeping. He was the only one sleeping.
Uh-huh.
And, so the drill sergeant wasn't getting through to the other guy. So how do you get through the other person? By punishing the other person and making the other person feel bad.
Right.
So he punished me to make him understand, hey, it's not okay to sleep in your locker.
Right.
Almost at the end of the basic, just hang on,
Mhm.
and at first I was very annoyed. I was upset, and I didn't get in trouble. I was the only one throughout the whole time that didn't get into trouble. Like, I got hometown recruiting because I didn't get in any trouble, and I thought that would mess up my hometown recruiting opportunities. It didn't, thank God. But I look back on it now, it's funny, because
Mhm.
it was so long ago, and the fact that the timing and everything, it was hilarious. I look back and I'm just like, Cal Connor, because that was his name,
Uh-huh.
walking out of his locker. And I gave him shit even after that because we ended up going to the same duty station together.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So you were both in Hawaii.
We
at the
both were in
same
Hawaii.
time.
So when I left basic training, out of, 300? 10 of us, 10 to 15 of us got this Hawaii only.
Wow.
Everybody else was split between Georgia and all the other duty stations across the world, like from Yakima and yada yada, all the way across. But 10 to 15 of us went to the exact same spot.
Mhm.
And so we got that opportunity to not only go through basic together, but continue to know each other past that time, and like
Mhm.
the few of us did, all of us kind of like had close-knit relationships because we had so much time from the
Mhm.
beginning together.
So you were on active duty during wartime. Were you ever deployed?
So I was 3 months shy of being deployed. When I got to my unit, I got to Rear D, and if I would if I would have been 3 months earlier,
Mm-hmm.
I would have went.
Uh-huh.
But I got there at that time, and when they were just coming back, and was that a culture shock, them coming back? Because we meeting people, we just joined. We don't know how people are, and we don't know how people recover. We didn't know anything about that. We were just still trying to learn the Army. It's definitely a learned task, but that was what we were trying to concentrate on. But they were all coming back, so we were just like preparing them to come back. Getting things ready. From the higher ranking officials doing the calendars, getting stuff ready for them to come back, and then us physically preparing.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, we did a little bit of training, but that's pretty much all we did.
So you were Inprocessing soldiers that were coming back from the wars.
By the time they came back, I was getting ready to start that job.
Uh-huh.
I was getting ready to start that job because the guy that was there, he was supposed to be out. He ended up getting out processed because of his weight. So he
Uh-huh.
was in E4. So I ended up taking his spot. I didn't know that I would take his spot. That just kind of happened.
Okay. Did you get all of the injections for going overseas, or?
We did, because at one point our USAPAC, which is what they call the unit in Hawaii, as a whole, we had to be ready, period, during that time, just to be ready.
Right.
And I think it had something to do with being in the Pacific.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we had to have those shots. We had to almost be like deployment ready. Like,
Right.
every 6 months, I think we had to update everything and make sure
Right.
that we were ready to go. Even though we didn't go anywhere, and sometimes that messed a lot of people up, like not
Yeah.
being able to go and just preparing for no reason.
Right.
It messed a lot of people up. I was kind of whatever about it. I was kind of open-minded because, who joins thinking, oh, well, I'm going to get deployed or I'm not going to get deployed? You can't really control that. You have to be kind of open-minded for it. So I was open to the, being deployed. And that's all I could do, is mentally prepare myself. Oh, well, maybe we'll get deployed. I couldn't be one of those ones like, oh, no, I don't want to go, because you're going to go anyways. And
might as well be prepared.
And at that point, you have to, I don't know how I told myself, but you have to let a little bit of control go. You're
Right.
not in control of anything. You're just a little swan in the pond
Mhm.
of, an agenda that's bigger than you, and I realized that early on, like, I don't know when I'm leaving and where I'm leaving, but if they need me to go, then hey, I'm gone.
Mhm. Yeah. That's the way that it works in the Army.
Yeah.
So, were you ever injured when you were on active duty?
I was pretty fortunate and pretty elastic, especially at that age.
Uh-huh.
I didn't really get any injuries. Like the one injury that I got was because of myself. I literally went one day, my friend and I went to a junkyard. He was fixing his car, and I went out there in sandals to a junkyard. Mind you, that's not the
Okay.
smartest thing
That's
to
not.
do. No.
Yeah.
But like before then, I've never been to a junkyard. I don't know what to expect. And I didn't know I was gonna step on a nail. I stepped on a nail. That didn't really prevent me from going. It was like a temporary like freeze. Okay, you have this reoccurring pain. How do we fix this? My body, it healed, but it didn't. And it got to a point where they had to pull skin out because that was what was causing the pain. And I mean, I don't have pain in that same spot now.
Uh-huh.
But during that time, I was in a lot of pain trying to figure out, hey, what's going on in this spot? And, why is it pain down there? And they took literally like a piece of skin like this big out of my foot. And after they did that, I was fine.
Okay. So, and were you discharged with any service-connected disabilities?
So I wasn't discharged with any disabilities. However, I almost did. With my unit. My unit and I had a weird relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I would do my job, and it depended on who was over me whether that was good enough.
Uh-huh.
And it took me a while to realize that. And like I went through 5 first sergeants and 5 commanders, I think 6 commanders. So like you never know who you'll get and how they'll be.
Uh-huh.
And it just depended on who was there, who was over me, who was who's going to be petty about every single little thing.
Right.
And then at that time, Obama was downsizing.
Okay.
So, at that point, they were looking for reasons to put people out to get those numbers down for the budget at congressional level. They were trying to get those numbers down. Hey, we need it down at this level. Let's start getting rid of people. And I think that started happening when they came back from Afghanistan, when they knew they weren't coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in my opinion, Obama knew that war was going to stop, which is why they started downsizing.
Okay.
And, when Biden took over, Biden took everybody out completely at that point. I think they were preparing for that.
Right. So were you sent out on a wave or rift, or did you just discharge after your contract was over?
So it was a point when I first got in, it was 6 months in, I was at my duty station, and my unit was stressing me out because they were trying to punish me just because they could, not because I actually did something. And because they didn't like me. They were looking for something. And I came back late from a trip, and I was a day late. I tried to contact them, but that wasn't sufficient enough at the time. And, they didn't care. They just wanted to catch me not, coming back at the time I was supposed to come back. Because technically by leave, you need to be back there by the end of leave, unless it's an emergency. Emergency it was. My plane flight got changed. So when I got back, they were I actually had extra duty under my my first sergeant because of he didn't like me. He was looking for a reason to give me extra duty. So I had extra duty at the troop level, which wasn't like punishment, but that was the beginning of them not understanding who I was and just wanted to punish me because of who they thought I was, and they didn't even really take the time to get to know me. And that was the frustrating part about being in the Army. But despite that, it didn't deter me from doing my job. And it didn't deter me from continuing and finishing and finishing things that I started, and I took paperwork home, as a E3, E4 to try to catch up, just to let them know, hey, I am doing something, like it was to the point where I was working and they still didn't believe what I was doing.
Uh-huh.
So it was like, I would go and I would be in the office all day and I'd be running here and there. And it was like, well, what did you do all day, Riley? I'm like, you want to call S1 and ask? And it got to a point where I was having to carry a DA-200 on service members. You probably know what that is. A receive to, I got this paper. I had to bring those papers in. And then it got down to a point where I was staff duty logging my duties by myself for accountability. Hey, I was here, there. Now shop it. If I stop at the shop it and I'm going to S1, that's on the way.
Right.
And I didn't let that deter me from going to go. If I'm running all day doing a job 2 grades above mine, I can go stop at the shop and go get something for myself. So like I would go do stuff for myself like that and in between, but I still got everything I needed to get done, sometimes more.
Yeah.
But it took a long time to get on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it took getting a new first sergeant.
Okay.
That's what eventually happened, and eventually a whole new command and things
Mm-hmm.
kind of changed.
So was it just the first sergeant that was harassing to you, or were other people?
It was a combination. Now, harassment for me started in basic.
Mm-hmm.
During the Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Uh-huh.
The Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed during basic. So
Okay.
before then, I'd already got harassed. At that point, when I got to my unit, I was still here and there being harassed subtly, because Don't Ask, Don't Tell was already it was already undone. So there was no hiding anything. But at
Right.
the same time, you couldn't go to the point of harassment, which it kind of got to that point in certain
Mm-hmm.
periods of my time in the service.
Did you ever report to anybody that you were being treated unfairly?
Yes, but as an E3 in a world where everybody is out to get me in my unit, and I'm not saying that
Mm-hmm.
everybody's out to get me, but I didn't have that support that,
Right.
oh, well, we know Riley is this soldier. He's doing this, this, and this. I didn't have that rapport yet with my unit. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't trust me enough to like give me the benefit of a doubt.
Uh-huh. That must have not felt very good at all.
I mean, I felt like I was by myself sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but the gratifying part was getting soldiers the money. When they come to their unit, they get in process. Most of them get married. Guess who has to do their paperwork? Me.
Mm-hmm.
So I did their paperwork. Hey, you get married. We need to change your dependent rate to 1, yada, yada, the next thing. And it took so many of those opportunities of fixing people's problems. And then my rapport started building up, and then people started giving me the benefit of the doubt. Then I got more leeway. Then I got more trust with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody left me alone at that point, and that's really what it took,
How long were you in the Army before you started being treated well?
It wasn't consistent enough to say that it was like I got more support from people out of my unit than in my unit. Literally, I had master sergeants that I would talk to, female and male, mostly female, because they were trying to look out for me. And it got to the point where I was asking them, hey, what do I need to do? I don't know what to do. And like the fact that I had that ability to ask an E8, a master sergeant, which
Right.
they don't make
An
time.
NCO.
They
Right.
don't want to make time. They try. They gotta go where they gotta go. It's like hit or miss whether you find a master sergeant that really cares about soldiers or not. Because they get in that shop and they stay in that shop for 2 or 3 years and they lose all complete connection with units and soldiers and everything like that. And it just took a while. And I mean, I had a little support. I had friends in my unit. I had E8s, E7s, E5s in different units, and everything worked out as far as like me being able to reach out when I didn't have help within. But I mean, eventually I had enough support to survive. But like treated good, there was no like point in my Army service where I was like, oh, this is great. For me, it was always fighting. I had to, find regulations. So like for me, my survival was knowledge. That was the only way I survived. And it took me memorizing regulations to survive, to make it through, to get to the end. Because I mean, I had a few people, but a few people can only do so much,
Right.
you know.
And how do you feel about your service time overall?
I think overall, I'm grateful that I went through what I went through, because, you know, like my childhood, it was like a speed pack. It was like an extra pad and an extra armor, you know, how to deal with people at this level, you know, and that prepared me for the outside, because it was way worse, you know, in the civilian world, you know, struggling, trying to, you know, get things done, and then knowing or not knowing is, you know, the pit, you know, if you don't know, then you're screwed, you know. Nobody's gonna help you if you don't know, you know. Nobody's gonna be like, hey, it's this, find this thing, you know, find that thing, look there. I had to seek it, you know, and like if I didn't seek knowledge, then I wouldn't know how powerful it is. Right. And I'm humbled, good and bad, of my experiences, because it taught me, hey, you know, everything's not gonna go your way, but what about that rainbow that just went by?
Right.
You know,
so
what about
did you see those rainbows?
Physically? Yeah, I could see double rainbows sometimes, and yeah, and you know, thank God I had distractions like those, that I could be like, okay, well, I'm having issues at my unit. Let me go to the beach and, you know, sit at the beach and think about things and relax, and maybe I'll feel better, you know. Right. And it took that, and I did at some points do things for myself, and that kind of helped a lot, you know, on little things for myself. And that was kind of the beginning of like floating and surviving during that time.
Yeah, you sound very self-reliant. That maybe that was a skill that you took with you from the Army service.
Yeah, I'm grateful that I got pushed to. They pushed me. They pushed me to like, hey, go do it on your own. Figure it out on your own. They're not gonna figure it out for you. Figure it out, you know. And when I got out, I kind of kept that momentum. You know, I kind of almost wanted to do the same job after I got out, because it just made me feel so good that I could do stuff for people. And I got myself back $29,000 that I was owed, because nobody else would do it for me. And, you know, that's gratifying, you know, that to be able to have the skills to fix your own problems. And I mean, they're going to get fixed as fast as I can go walk it, send it and turn it in and get it signed, you know. And
so tell me a little bit about that $29,000. How'd you do it?
So when I got to my unit, I was married actually. And I was supposed to be living in a house with my wife. And she didn't come, but even still, I was supposed to have my own place. I was in the barracks when I wasn't supposed to be for 2 years, a year and some change. That same amount of time added up to what I was supposed to get as a married person. And nobody in my unit wanted to help me. And I found out that the guy that had my position had that paper at the bottom of the desk. So I found it there. Okay. I looked at it and was like, wait a minute, I gotta fix my paperwork. You know, I know how to fix it now. You know, I know what I need. Let me go get everything I need and let's fix it. And I fixed it, and I got a whole lump sum back, because when government owes you money, they have to give you every cent back. And I got every red cent back, and my paycheck carrying on, you know. So with that money, I paid my debt off that I had at that time. I think it was like $10,000 in debt, and 10 to 15. And I literally, 21 years old, 22, was responsible enough to pay it. That's good. I was impressed with myself. And, you know, like, again, the Army taught me, hey, well, you know, if you want to stay in the Army, you know, you need to get rid of this debt, because it's going to be a liability for you if you stay in. And I'd already, you know, knew that. I was like, hey, well, I need to pay my debt off if I plan on staying in, because I kind of planned on staying in. And I quickly changed my mind at the end, and I finally got my restitution. It took me going to go get it. It took me going to go follow up. But I finally got my own restitution, and me fixing my own problem, that did a lot for me. That, that showed me, hey, sometimes it's going to take effort from you to fix your problems. And sometimes it's just going to be you. And you have to be patient. You can't give up, and you have to keep going until you solve the problem. And I think, again, the Army did that for me. The Army gave me that, hey, when you have a problem, don't run from it. Go fix it.
Right.
And, I had sergeants, if they do a counsel statements, they're going through like, hey, what's going on in your life? And, they're writing that down, like yada, yada, yada. Like, I don't want to be a liability later on for another unit. So I was kind of responsible, and I'm glad that the Army taught me that, so it wasn't just bad. Bad, I guess, is perspective. And in that time period, I wasn't in the same humble mindset that I am now. I think if I was, I probably would still be in, because in life, it's always gonna be something trying to hold you back, dragging you. You got to drag it with you, or you gotta let it. You're gonna let it, hold you back. And like in the Army, it's just like, hey, if you want to progress, drag it. So I was walking, and I had planned on doing things, and I wouldn't let anything stop me, and I just kept going. And I the Army taught me that. The Army is like, hey, it's okay to care about people. Before, I don't understand how my mindset was. I didn't care about people the same way that I care about them now. It took doing that job, when somebody didn't have their money, it felt like I didn't have my money. I took it personal. And, I feel like the Army taught me how to be compassionate. It taught me, hey, yes, take care of yourself first, but, taking care of others is part of the mission. So that helped me, hey, I have all my ducks lined up in a row. Let me see if this other person has any problems that could be fixed, and so I was always trying to help other people, sometimes to the point where it took away from myself. That was the only negative part. But if it wasn't for the Army, I wouldn't know compassion. I wouldn't know confident. I wouldn't know, hey, don't you give up, ever. And, that was my motto, even signing the contract, is, hey, you sign up for this contract, you're going to do it, and we're going to see it all the way through. Because if you don't, then you're just going to fall back into the traps of my own family. And the fear of going back home was the fear that kept me going, because I was not going back home. I wasn't going to let anything stop me from going back home, because I didn't want to go back home.
I understand. I lived in Alabama for 3 years.
There's nothing there.
No, I joined the Army to get out of Alabama.
I joined the Army there. Yeah, so you understand the frustrations.
Sure.
There's nothing there. There's no progression. There's no, well, let me go do this. Let me try to be the best at this, because what's the best? Nobody is even on that standard with. Nobody cares.
Right.
Down it.
It's a different world.
It is a different world. And I'm grateful that the Army has taught me those things. And it's painful. And some of the memories I went through still bring me to tears to this day, but I couldn't undo it. I wouldn't go back in time and not sign. I wouldn't go back and not get all those people's money. If I wouldn't have stayed, it would have been $200,000 of restitution that people needed to, for personnel actions, for the pay and stuff like that. And if I wasn't there, I wouldn't have been able to help people solve problems, and I wouldn't have been able to solve my own problem.
Yeah.
You need to turn on your microphone.
Oh, okay.
Yours was on.
Okay.
Sorry. I see that
Now it's on.
I see that you brought some important paperwork with you. Would you like to tell us what that's about? Excuse me.
So, here,
So use your palm. So
this was probably the first one. I didn't qualify, as you can see, because it's not there. This was one of the first few. But as time progressed, I got better. When people didn't believe in me, I still believed in me.
You've got almost everything on the target on that page.
And then the third one, yeah. I was at this point I was sharpshooter. So I went from somebody that couldn't qualify. People told me that I wouldn't qualify. Oh, I did. And then how many people I shut up when I took this paper down and took it to the office? Nobody was arguing with me.
Did you get a ribbon or a coin for the sharpshooter?
I did get the ribbon for the sharpshooter, yeah. But this was just one significant thing that people told me that I couldn't do. Even in basic, I was supposed to qualify. I almost didn't qualify in basic, but I did.
Yeah.
Um,
What other awards or ribbons or coins did you receive when you were in the military?
So with everybody's service, you normally get the Army Good Conduct Medal. If you don't, it's normally sitting in the S1 office, and they never gave it to you, and they end up throwing it away. But I worked with them, so I made sure I went and go get mine. You know, I sent it up there. I was like, "Hey, is this mine? Can I get that?" And I got it, and I took it with me.
That's great.
And then this one was the discharge. This is what I got when I signed my reenlistment, although I didn't do my reenlistment contract. This was what I needed to suffice my service, and this is kind of what made me.
And that's your oath of office
This was
that you're showing.
No. And this was my first degree. It's old, and it's not even accredited anymore, but it's still mine. So.
Yeah, you worked for it. You earned it. And this is your fashion and design diploma.
This is the first thing I did on my own. Although I was a wild child, I still accomplished something there in that time period. So, and I have yet to marry anybody, but this is my wedding officiant certification. So technically, as long as I have to take a marry people, I like to marry somebody. That would be awesome. And then this was what I got here at the hospital. I had to volunteer. It's a Bravo Award. I didn't really get a lot of things in my life in general, and to me, it's just like the little things that they mean the world, and I appreciate the staff here giving me this award.
That's great.
And this was from when I worked at the state parks, and I did 100 hours total, I think.
Were
was
you a volunteer at the state park?
I was a volunteer at the state park in Park County, the 11-mile state park. I volunteered there for the most part. It was like 2 to 3 months. I ended up not being able to do it because of the surgery that I had. So I ended up having to leave early. And I keep everything. So when I was in the Army, I was in charge of the memos. So as soon as a commander took office, I updated all his memos. Some of them included me. Most of them have me on it. And I have a few assumption of command memos from that time period.
Trying to get it like between you guys in the shot. So if you want to go like that way and then forward, just so we have somewhere like you can see it in the shot. Because when we're getting it centered on this one, it's like making you like twist and it's like covering you up in this one. So yeah, for the next couple, let's try this side when you're centering it.
This side or this side?
That side, yeah.
Okay. It's just a few. So this 1, 2. This is the third commander. This was the last commander that I had. This was technically my first commander. He was the best commander that I ever had. And he actually cared about me during my time, and I don't know how to thank him for that. His name was Jason Knockowitz. He was, I don't know where he is now, but he was an awesome person, and he was probably the best damn commander I ever served under. And he really cared about people. He really cared about me.
I'm glad.
And this was one of my duties. One of them, because I had a few. I had at least 15. It was just me. I was like, you get this gives you permission to do whatever you're gonna go do. And when you go to, like, when I went to S1, I couldn't go in there without this, because technically, yeah, her name, she's authorizing me to go up there. So it was points where, like, I was skipping a chain to go turn paperwork in for my unit. And it was continuous, and I kept doing it till I got in trouble. You know,
Okay.
I kept doing it until they told me to stop. So that's what I did. And it's literally not all of them, but it's just a few. Again, this is one Staff Sergeant Marine. He's probably watching this video. Hopefully he is. He was one of the best NCOs that I had over me during that time period. And, you know, when people were doubting me, he wasn't. And I'll never forget him for that. And then a bunch of other ones, like I keep them all. I keep them all. I'm probably the one that keeps all of my paperwork. But this goes on. It's a bunch of these, but I hold these because when I forget what I did, I look at these and they remind me, you know, hey, you were on almost every memo, and they had you doing everything, you know. So I have to remind myself when I try to discredit myself on my own service, which I don't do a lot. You know, you'll be like, well, I didn't get anything accomplished. I don't feel, you know. This is what I look at, and I'm just like, okay, I feel better. You know, I look at this, I'm like, I busted my tail to do a good job when I was in the Army. But that's just a few of them there. And as far as like awards, when I first got out of the Army, actually when I moved here, I got this at Walmart. I was a manager. They didn't even know me. They didn't know me from a hole in the wall. And you know that they still appreciated me and gave me this plaque after a month of being there. After a month of being there, this is what they did for me. And I was like, wow.
Did they give you a special service ribbon to wear, or
They gave me a placard as far as like the veteran thing, but this is one thing that they physically gave me that I didn't lose. You know, I still have this. So when I doubt my own workability, this is what I go back to, like, hey, you were important at some point to a bunch of people, enough to where they went out of the way to get this thing. And like I said before, like, this little things that like tear me up. It's not like I don't need $1 million. Like, this was probably worth $10, but or whatever. I don't know, but it was enough to make me feel good about being there. And I'm appreciative of this Walmart.
I think there's a lot of people here that love you and want you to stay here.
Yeah,
There's a lot of acceptance here for you.
And I wasn't used to that until I moved here. And this are the two things that I drew. This was actually the first. And then this one was not the first. This was kind of recently. Paintings, paint, hike. I just got into axe throwing. I didn't even know I liked axe throwing until I threw an axe. And you better ask somebody. I'll throw one good now. I'm pretty good at it now.
Okay. I might have a subject for you to throw one at.
And like I told you, I keep everything. So this is almost everything. This was when I first enlisted. This was the sergeant that enlisted me.
And what are the two helicopters you have here?
So here, go in the center. Yep. So bring it up just a little bit.
Yeah, that's
okay. So at the top, it's pretty much everything. This was the first. This is the guy that recruited me. I kept this card. This was my weapon. No, that was my license actually.
Driver's license.
The Army one.
Yeah.
Okay. The Soldier's Creed, which I don't know if they still carry the same Soldier's Creed. This had all of the vehicles, some of which I've never drove in my entire life. But you know how they will. They will throw everything on your license and you don't know how to drive it. But this was when they added everything on there. This was the first training that we did when I got to my unit.
Did you fast rope down the helicopters? Or?
No, we actually worked with the Marines,
Mhm.
and it was like a dual training. So it was training for them and training for us. So we were like we were like the enemy technically, as far as this was we worked with the Marines. So Marines were up in the air and we were on the ground. And it was like it was a collaborative training that we did when we first got to the unit, when the unit was still deployed. And then that was when I first got in. That picture of me as E2. And then clean it up. I bet. Forward. This way? Okay. Then the middle one is the delayed entry program, was when I first signed my contract and I had to wait. Then this was my ACE card that I just carried around just because they told us we had to have it on us because it was part of the uniform. This was one of my cards that I kept and popped my chip out of it just because I wanted to keep it as memorabilia. And then my mail room, they gave me access to get the mail from my unit. This was my first mail card. This was my first weapons card that we turned in with the weapon. And when we turned it in, this was something that we kept with us. And I think when we turned it in, it was like a switch. So when we had the weapon, they had this, and when we got it back, we kept this. Same thing with this one underneath. And then that's another picture of the same training at the bottom.
That's neat. It looks like a nice collage.
This is 10 years old. I'm surprised it's still here.
It's in good shape.
Yeah, I try to keep up with everything, but this is most of a collage of experience from my Army experience.
And what other citations did you receive when you were on active duty?
I got the one for being you get one for being deployed. Well, you get one for being in Hawaii because of where it is.
Oh, really?
I forget the one that it's called. And then you get I got another one for the sharpshooter, and then I had about 3 ribbons total. I didn't really participate that much because I feel like I was growing up faster than I was supposed to in the Army. So I didn't get to have as much fun as like I should have. Because I was an NCRO, I really took that role serious. So I didn't get to have as much. I wasn't a regular Joe, I guess I should say. I didn't get to be a regular Joe. So I didn't get to do exactly everything that all the other soldiers did during that time period.
Is there anything else that you want to share about your active duty time?
The Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed during my time. That was one major critical historical part that I didn't expect, and I didn't see that coming.
How did that affect you?
I had already tried to suppress that part just because it was already in effect. But to me, like, I just didn't let that define me. So, like, it was just one aspect of who I was. I didn't let it like dictate who I was supposed to be or who I wasn't supposed to be. I just went along with what happened, and it was what it ended up being.
So tell me about the different careers and college choices that you've made after the service.
So after I got out of the service, I I was seeking out different careers or choices. It was accounting at one point. For a little bit when I was in the Army, it was actually graphic design. For the most part, it was after I'd done horticulture certification. I have a certification in small business operations, and I'm currently now just going to school for graphic design, an associate's degree right now at CCD.
Okay. And what do you like the best about the school?
I like the best about the school. I haven't had any problems out of them, and actually it feels more welcoming than I'm accustomed to, and it's a lot less chaos. It's a lot less chaos at this college. Do I expect perfection? No, but at this specific college, it's less chaos, and I can appreciate that, and it's made this whole journey so far, second semester, easier. So.
How long is your program?
This program, I'll be done with this program next summer if I don't take a break, which I don't really see me taking a break. And then I'll continue at MSU, and then I'll get a bachelor's degree there, and then hopefully I'm done and I don't go back.
Are you going to school on the GI Bill or are you in voc rehab?
So I use my GI Bill up, being indecisive and not doing things that, resonated with me. But I enjoyed the experience. I ended up having to use the VRE. So now I'm using the VRE, and that's how I'm going back to school again.
And tell me about the VRE.
Well, the voc rehab.
Oh, it is voc
Yeah,
rehab.
voc rehab.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're rehabbing you because of
The
what reason?
disability that I got when I moved here.
What brought you to Colorado?
So I was looking for a new start. I had already, stopped doing things that I shouldn't have been doing that didn't get me further in life. And, I stopped hanging around people that didn't do anything for me, that were holding me back. And this was the next move to start changing. And like this moving here was the change, but it was bigger than that. Like everything changed from here to there on moving here from Alabama, technically. Although I kind of lived in Florida and Alabama, I was kind of like everywhere. So I kind of really didn't have a home, and it was time to find one. And I said I would never move here. I said that. I said I would never live in Colorado. It's cold, and I'm cold right now, and it's not even that cold, but like I've came to peace with the cold, and everything that I've started here, everything that I've done here has just, I'm so grateful, that everything changed for me. I moved here. I finally got property of my own. Finally, finally. That was the whole reason why I joined the Army, was to, get up enough money to have something of my own. So I have 3 properties of my own, finally. And I'm humble. Like, if I don't have anywhere to go, I can go squat on my property and just be happy, and live off whatever I have there. And here I got my benefits. I started my benefits here. The minute I got here, I signed up, I got my benefits started, and everything just kept going. And it was good and bad, but mostly good. I've been the most at peace here. I'm not angry here. I had to de-angrify myself, because that was what I was only used to being angry for no reason sometimes. And when I lived here, it was kind of hard getting used to people being so nice. I'm like, what are they being nice? What do they want? And that's what I thought, like I had a lot of trust issues when I moved here, and that changed. And I became more independent. Like I didn't need to be around people all the time. That happened kind of when I lived here, and I'm grateful for that. And I got my new service dog here.
I was going to ask you about hope.
And like, that was my last hope.
Yes.
And I'm glad that, that happened. So that was like another addition of things that happened for me, and that was good. And I could complain, but it would be useless, because then I'd be denying myself to be, the humility of everything that I've gotten here. And, finally having a place of my own here. And finally feeling stable here. all of that happened here, and I'm torn between even leaving, because if I ever leave here, it'll be only for half the year. I would never fully leave Colorado. That's how much Colorado has helped my life for the better.
How long have you been in Colorado?
I've been here for about 5 years. Actually, 5 years. Monday. No,
On
the
Monday.
30th, whatever the 30th of April is. Oh no,
Oh,
next
March.
month.
Oh,
Next month.
okay.
April 30th has been 29th is
Yeah.
5 years exactly. I've been here.
Wow. So how are you going to celebrate that?
I might get in the car and just go somewhere and not tell myself until I park it. Because I like to always predict what's going to happen. Sometimes I just like going in the car and just not telling myself and just going. And then sometimes I don't believe myself, so just going somewhere and just celebrating. Maybe have a drink, maybe, or just go outside and look at the west, look at that mountain, because I've never had that view before, and that view is in itself refreshing. Like, I don't know, just exist that day and just reflect. I think on that day, that's what I'll do.
That sounds great. What's your favorite spot in Colorado?
My favorite spot, my favorite spot is okay. So my favorite spot is one of the neighborhoods I used to live in. I don't live there anymore, but I don't know why something draws me to that area, and sometimes I'll just go sit there, and sometimes I might not be doing anything, but that's I don't know my favorite spot to go. I go there like at least once a week.
Okay.
It's off over in Federal Heights kind of area, off of 84th.
Okay.
In that area. That's kind of like one of my go-to spots, my favorite spots to go to, just to relax and unwind.
And do you have children, or do you think that that'll ever be part of your path?
So I do not at this moment have kids. I do see that in my foreseeable future. I feel like having this service puppy is gonna throw a lot of patience my way. And in about 5 years, I'm sure I'll probably have kids. That's like one of the last few things that I want to do.
And what will be your best takeaways that you will offer your children when they grow up?
Don't be afraid to do anything, even when sometimes it doesn't make sense, even when sometimes people tell you that you can't do it, even when you don't believe you can do it. Try. The least you could do is fail, but don't let that be the end of it. Keep trying. I wish that it was more people in my life that told me that in the past when I wanted to give up. I would tell that to my kids. Never give up, and never let anybody stop you from whatever you want to do.
So it sounds like you have a very high worldview with yourself and with other people, from what you're telling me. When did you develop that sense of understanding this world?
I think living here kind of like ironed out that person, because before I had a lot of distractions with people who didn't, you are who you hang around. And if you hang around somebody that, takes care of themselves, you will automatically. But at that same momentum, if it's the opposite, it's the same result, and so I think like really like weeding out the people that, didn't, wasn't reciprocal as far as communication and friendship, and you always want to have somebody that's gonna go the same distance that you go. And when it's questionable is when you need to question, hey, is this person still beneficial for my life or not? And you gotta ask yourself that. And I asked myself that several times, and it took cleaning out house and being by myself and just realizing, hey, it's okay to do things by yourself. It's okay to do things by yourself, but you need to just enjoy being by myself.
Mhm.
Because I mean, if I have kids, I definitely won't be,
Mhm.
and having my puppy, I'm not by myself anymore. So
Yeah.
I always have to remind myself, hey, we got to go take her outside.
Yeah.
And put a pause on everything else. Like even sometimes when I'm in the middle of a sandwich,
Uh-huh.
it's like, oh my God, she has to go outside. Okay, let's
Mhm.
take her outside. So it's definitely helped having her, and I just feel like again, I'm just grateful that everything is the way that it is, and it's not perfect. It's my life, and I can accept the imperfections
Mhm.
now, and just roll with it and try to fix it. And if I can't fix it, then just move on.
Mhm.
Accept it.
Yeah. I think somebody is actually bringing Hope to visit right now. Is that right? We might cut for just a minute. We might cut for just a minute. Cut for just a minute.
Oh, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
We'll
Oh, okay. Is there anything that you had written down when you were answering the questions?
I
that
kind of went
we
off of
wanna-
it, I think,
Okay.
for the most part. I think
Okay.
show Hope.
Oh, yes, please.
Show you lift her.
If you just unbuckle her from there, and then if you lift her, then I'll grab her from you. Yeah, she's soft, huh?
Oh yeah, very much.
She's already gotten
Okay,
bigger.
come here, baby. She's not all cute right here. This is not all innocence. There is a little evil behind here, but she's 9 weeks old. I've had her for a week already, and it's been a 2 to 3 month process getting to this point, and she definitely is a handful, but sometimes she steals a little hope, but most days she is always giving it.
Mhm.
That was kind of like one of her names. The reason why her name was like, oh, maybe she'll be the hope that I need to, get through the day without feeling like, oh, hey, I'm doing this alone. Nah, she's here, and when I feel emotionally uh when I feel emotional, she'll be here. And she's already kind of proven that she can be a support dog anyway, since look at her talking now.
She's just eating the microphone.
Don't eat that.
Yeah.
She looks like a camera dog already looking at the microphone.
Yeah.
But I've only had her for a week, and she has definitely taught me a lot, and this is like my 4-legged child right now. So this is my one kid until I have kids.
Mhm. Well, it looks like she loves you very much.
I love her too, and she's a pretty good dog so far. And again, I'm grateful to have her. And like this is one thing that reminds me that hey, when you feel like you don't have anybody, look on the floor. You do.
Mhm.
Look down. You have somebody. You always have somebody, and I'm grateful to have her.
Mhm. Can you tell me about the program that you got her through and what the requirements are?
The program I got her from was the Hero Puppy for Life program. The only requirements that they have is that you vow not to give it back. And I gave up a dog when I first moved here. I am not giving up another dog.
Mhm.
She will leave this earth before I give her up.
Mhm.
And I'm just happy I don't have to give her away.
I'm sure.
Because when I first moved here, I had to give my dog away. And I was not ready to give him up. And it's taken 5 years to want a dog. And I finally wanted a dog, and here she is.
Mhm.
And it's going to take a long time to train her, and I'm willing to go. I'm willing to whatever. She's spoiled. I do what I can for her. And hell, when I first got her, I slept on the floor beside her. That's how much I cared about her. And
Wow.
hopefully this will be the beginning of a great relationship, and I'm sure that it will be.
Looks like you're off to a great start with her. She's just beautiful.
And
And
this is
she's so sweet.
one of the first times I can get her to sit down and be still. Like it's almost like she knows what's going on. And
Right.
I got emotional. It was random. It was happy emotion, and I was in the shower. She was leaping over the gate
Uh-huh.
to comfort me, and like it was a point I was just like, this is not the point. I'm telling her to stop. I'm gonna let her come over. I picked her up, and she was like licking my face, and she just knew, hey, I'm here. And I was just like, this is gonna be a great service dog already. Like if she's leaping over, she's denying what I'm telling her to do to come comfort me, even despite what I say. This is a great dog, and that was
Right.
the one moment I was like, she's gonna be great.
She sensed you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's why she's calm now, because she knows that this probably has been. She knows I'm a little like emotionally exhausted already.
Uh-huh.
I can kill, like, from her temperament, I can tell that she kind of senses it. So,
Uh-huh.
The only requirement is you don't give her back, which I don't know why you would adopt a dog and give her back, and just vow to keep her current on her vaccinations and her shot records, and to continue the training, because the training is kind of specific to a service dog. So everything that as a dog trainer, and I'm sure a lot of y'all have dogs out there, it's not the same training. So you have to be open to doing things that you don't feel comfortable doing. Because I've been doing it because I know that it'll help her, and it'll help her be consistent. And hell, she's helping me be consistent. I'm already like, I'm remembering when it's time to feed her, because I'm eating and I'm taking care of myself, because I'm cooking, because I know that she won't give me time to eat. So I'm cooking during that time. And I've seen since I've had her that I've been taking care of myself. I've been eating 3 meals a day, and normally it's 2. Because I don't make time for myself. But when I make time for her, she makes me make time for me.
Yeah.
By default. Look at you. I love you so much. Huh?
And how much training will she end up needing?
I think I'm not quite sure in the training. I'm not sure if it's like a few months. I would assume it's like at least 6 months. That's a guess.
Okay.
Although I've already started training her already, little by little. She's pretty smart. She knows how to sit. She knows how to stay and stay put, because we've tried and tested that a lot. And she knows how to wait for me to set the bowl down. And she knows, hey, if I don't set the bowl down, I'm not ready yet. And she'll wait till I set the bowl down, and then she'll go grab her food. I'm amazed at how much is actually like absorbing through her. And I don't probably know her 100%, but I can guarantee I know her at least 85 so far. And it's been only like a week. Don't eat that, baby. I know it's good and you want to taste everything. But she's a big baby. She's my big baby, and I'm not rushing her age, but I wonder sometimes what our relationship will be down the road. Not in a negative way, but just wondering, like, how will this dynamic change, from now to then? And I feel like right now at this point, it's the beginning of a good relationship, and she's pretty trained already.
She's pretty happy to be her papa.
Yeah. And she likes sitting in my lap. I'm trying to get her out of not being a lap dog. I'm trying to like separate a little bit. So I'm in the car. She sits in the seat. So that way, I'm teaching her, hey, you don't have to be right in my lap to be with me. And so we're still like, that's probably that, and a little bit of potty training. That's the only thing that I have. I'm currently like diligently working on. As far as like, hey, I don't have to be right in your lap, but you don't have to be right in my lap to be here. Like, and I think she's even definitely understand that. So she's a very smart dog. She's a English golden retriever. Ooh.
Oh, she is. She's got great coloring. She's got a little bit of blonde on her ears, and
this was the first dog that I seen this exact species. I've never seen this exact species before. I didn't even know it existed. I always, knew about the golden retrievers. I never knew it was a different kind.
Mhm.
Your mic.
Oh, I've got it.
Oh, flip it back.
Oh, sure.
And make
I
sure,
just-
is it still on? Is there a blue light?
Yes.
Oh,
Oops. Oh, okay. Okay.
She has just eaten it up. Have you been on camera before?
she's a little diva.
I swear she's acting like she's been on camera before.
Yeah, she needs a little diamond collar.
Put it back. Okay. Yeah, let's get it finished. Okay. Will you hook her back up to the? Okay. Okay, let's close this out.
So, could you pick up the questions? Let's do the reflection.
Go ahead and straighten your jacket out for us.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna check with your doctor. I think it's pretty good.
They look great.
Doesn't look super clingy.
Okay.
Okay.
Am I standing up straight?
So I think we've got most of it.
Yeah.
What were some of your life lessons learned in the service?
Hold on, hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me do this and then.
Okay.
I love that it only stuck to your tie.
I need a lamp. I need one of those little rolling.
Yeah.
The rollers.
Mhm.
Yeah. They sell them at Big Lots. Real
I
cheap.
ran out.
Tuck it in.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the life lessons that you learned with your military service that you'd like to comment on?
Some comments. I would say, really, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more armor that you have on, the more invincible you are. That's what I can tell people, because if it wasn't for knowledge, I would have been probably out of the service right when I signed up.
Mhm. What are some of the things that you miss about being in the service?
Some things that I miss about the service is the camaraderie, the knowing that, hey, you're in a business, but this is the business of government, and we're in different places, but we're all working together. Even when we're not communicating, even when we're not seeing what we're doing, hey, we already know we can rely on that person behind us, because we've been, we've worked with that person, we've grown with that person, we've known that person. I miss just being able to relate at that level, like you get off work, you be like, hey, it's been a long day, and that part, and just being able to rely on such a big group of people across the world. Like, I miss that, because you can email anybody online, as in the Army, and sometimes I did, and I miss that part about the Army, like the camaraderie, the almost family. I miss that.
Did you take any trips on TDY or?
I did. As a matter of fact, I started exploring. I explored Maui. I went on my birthday, my 21st birthday, to Maui, and what else did I go? That was one of the most significant places that I went when I was there, because I didn't get that much leave, but that was one place that I wanted to go, and I was like, hey, let's go to Maui, and it was beautiful. That was the first beach I seen with black sand.
Did you go snorkeling or diving?
I kind of delved into swimming. I did actually do that a little bit, but I couldn't get my hands to equalize. The scuba diving and stuff like that was kind of like, with my ears, I couldn't do it, but I did surf, body surf. It was, I can't tell you how amazing that experience was to body surf, and for the waves to carry you halfway from the ocean all the way down, no effort. And I just felt like I was connected with the earth at that point. I can't even really explain it, but it was amazing experience.
That's great. What are some of the other things that you miss about being in the military?
Some other things that I miss about the military, to be honest, I miss my old job. I miss my old job. I miss doing that job. I don't miss similar jobs out in the civilian world. I miss that job. I guess I miss the gratification that people got from me helping them, and I miss that. I miss helping people. I miss all of that. And yeah, that's pretty much what I miss the most.
Is there anything that you're glad that you left behind in the service besides that first sergeant?
Anything that I missed?
Anything that you left behind? Is there anything that you're glad that you left behind?
I guess the angry person that was there at the end,
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I left that person behind, because that person wouldn't have done anything to progress me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like I had to realize that when I separated, all of my issues need to be separated,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because if I take that with me, that's not helping anybody, you
Right.
know, or me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I left that resentful, angry person at the end. I'm glad I left that person behind, because that person wasn't, you know, doing anything for anybody, you know, especially me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I would have carried that on, who knows where I would have been, you know, like, or how much progression I would have still been, you know, behind.
Mm-hmm. And what do you wish more civilians knew about military service?
I wish more people would realize that when the minute you know that a relative or a friend is getting out of that service, you need to be glued. If you care about them, you need to be glued to them, because from that point to the time that they're actually out, they need consistency. They need a consistent person telling them, hey, you still got this. You were in the Army. You can keep doing it. They need that support system getting out. Like, they need somebody reassuring them, telling them, hey, it's okay. You know, what happened to you, I'm sorry that happened to you. You can get through it. And, you know, like, for me, I was kind of my own person in that avenue. And I didn't realize, hey, I needed a lot of support back then getting out. And if I could leave people with some information, we need you. We need you from that point on, because who knows what can happen from that point. That's the fragile point in people's lives, that transition of first getting out. Is you need emotional support from family members and friends. And if you don't get that, then that's an almost unhealthy veteran, and a lonely one at that too. And that's one thing I would say.
Mm-hmm. What would you like for people to know or remember from your own journey and experience?
That despite the negative stuff that happened, it happened for the best.
Okay.
And I wouldn't change it.
And what message would you like to leave for future generations, such as your children when you have them?
When you pick a future career, pick one that resonates with you here and here, but here first, because then everything else will align. I wish I had somebody telling me, hey, if this is what you want to do, why are you going to do something else? You know, don't second guess yourself. If it feels right in your heart, it feels right in your gut, do it.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to cover or add to this interview?
No.
Okay. Well, Julian, it was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.